like I would go around to different publishers, like with my agent, when we were sort of shopping around my first novel, and they would say things like, like the paperback, department, like they don't see an audience for this. Like they don't think that it will sell, right? So in other words, what they were saying is, right, like no one's going to read, like we won't be able to sell this, right? People aren't interested in engaging with these types of stories. And so I ended up publishing with a really small publisher that was like invested in publishing Black literary writers. And later, a few years later, they published Kiese Layman.
Novel?
They published the novel, and then I want to say did they publish the essays? But then when he go to Bloomsbury first, was it with Kathy at Bloomsbury?
Is this the novel that was republished?
Yes, it was republished, right, with Scrivener. So I mean, I think just at that time, there was no, people didn't think that there was any sort of audience for it. And I was internalizing all of that. Like, even though I love the people I write about, I love the stories that I was telling, I understood that they weren't perfect, right? But I don't think that I would have been doing it if I didn't believe that they were worth being told and that they were worth witnessing, right? But I did get to a point where I almost quit.
Right.
Yeah, because I kept like revising that first novel, read it back again, to publishers before I signed, took it to that smaller publisher. And, and they just kept coming up with like new reasons for why it didn't work and why it wasn't a good fit for them and why, and I think that it's difficult for writers who are first starting out to, I think, understand that and especially then, because things were different back then. I can think it's a bit easier now, right? Because I think that the publishing industry's ideas about what will sell and what kind of books, will garner like a reading audience. I think that it's expanded a bit, right? I think there's more room now. But back then, there really just wasn't a lot at all. And so I began to just internalize, and I thought, well, maybe maybe they're not worth reading. Like maybe no one's interested in, in this. And I think because it was my first book too, I just, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I was just, mimicking some of what I saw out in the world. Some of the writers who I, admired, trying to, follow their, form. Morrison, of course, Faulkner, of course, Alice Walker, Ntozake Shange, Louise Erdrich, I really love, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Those are some of them. But yeah, so I was just, trying to, I don't know, use some of the tools that I feel like I had sort of learned from them, and trying to sort of, synthesize all of that and apply them to my world and into my characters. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think about it and it's like, I'm very grateful to my younger self because like I had the audacity to believe that I can do it, even though the world was constantly telling me that I couldn't, right? And I'm hearing that not only from the publishing industry, right, from literary magazines to publishing companies, but I'm also hearing that some of that more negative feedback in the classroom, right? Because the kind of writing that I was doing was not the kind of writing that was admired, right? Because my prose was too convoluted, and and the people I was writing about, they weren't white New Yorkers or.
That's what you were hearing in your MFA program.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the feedback that I got, people just some of the kids in my course, some of the writers, my peers, they understood what I was trying to do, and they gave me feedback that was tailored to what I was trying to do, and that was helpful, right? But I think that there were others, because of the kind of people that I write about, right? Because of the community that I come from, the reality is so different. They just couldn't. They couldn't access it. They couldn't see my characters as people. They couldn't engage with it in any like seriously critical way, I think. So I almost gave up, but there was just a part of me that was just stubborn, and I think there was a part of me that was stubborn. There was a part of me that just loved the people that I wrote about so much, in the place that I wrote about so much, that just refused to give up, because to give up would mean that I didn't love that place, and I didn't love those people in the way that I did, right? Or at least in my head, that's what it felt like. And I think there was a part of me that, I don't know, that perhaps if I had known more about how publishing worked, maybe, or if I had if I had been more clear-eyed, I think, about the way the odds were stacked against me, I think that there was a part of me that would have given up.
So you're like naivete.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness you were naive and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to I don't know. Sometimes I think, you can, I think that you can work really hard, and you can take all the correct steps that you think that you have to take in order to, reach your goal or to get wherever you want to be. But I think that for me, in my experience, that intuition played that me sort of listening to that voice, that inner voice, that naive inner voice, maybe, right? That allowed me to get where I am today. And then just that sort of stubbornness that was closely aligned with the love that I have for, the people who I write about and the place that I write about, that enables me to get, to where I am now. Because I think it's just interesting, because I feel like I think people looking at it from the outside just think, so she went to this MFA program, and then she got this fellowship, and then she went to this small publisher, and then from that small publisher, then she moved to this publisher, right? So it's a very here are the steps that you need to take, right, in order to get to this level of success. Whereas I think it's it's messier than that. And I just feel like that I want to communicate that in my answer, that it's messier than that.